So today I'm going to do a fun video because lately in terms of my content it's been relatively boring with the way that I've been doing news of the week episode and moving forward series episode. I kind of doing like that over and over again, and I just kind of feel like since it's the new year I want to do more fun content, especially in the off season. This is a time for me to do some of these fun content where as I probably wouldn't have time to do these when I do these kind of video during the season in MLS, because usually during that time I usually have to do a preview, review, and then news of the week, and then kind of so on and so forth. So today we're going to talk about this fun content about stadium, because stadium and attendance in MLS is some of my favorite topic to talk about. And specifically, we're going to talk about all the teams that currently plays in a non-soccer specific stadium. So teams that are either playing an NFL stadium, CFL stadium, or in some case playing in a baseball stadium. And we're going to kind of do a rankings of these team that is least likely that is moving away from their non-soccer specific stadium to build themselves a new stadium, and teams that most likely is going to do it soon. And you notice I have 8 teams on here, even though technically as of heading into next season there's going to be 7 teams that is going to be playing in a non-soccer specific stadium, act as their home. And the one of the team that I decided to add is Inter Miami, and I know Inter Miami does play in a soccer specific stadium, but let's be honest, Drive Pink Stadium is not really the temporary home for Inter Miami. I mean, it was just a stadium for them, or actually it's not their permanent home, it's just kind of like their temporary home before they do finally build that stadium in Miami and in Freedom Park that they hope to open in a couple of years. But I still kind of add onto it because, let's be honest, I think they are definitely going to be number one in terms of it. And in some way, I probably shouldn't have included them, because we know that they're going to do so, even though, you know, it's been kind of political hot potato that is going on, and there seems to be so many lawsuit that is going on with that project. But that being said, that's kind of how Inter Miami is, though I would assume that eventually they are going to do it, and they're not going to have that suffer the same fate as some other team that also have to face kind of political hot potato and just having some numerous lawsuits of preventing them of building themselves a soccer specific stadium. So with that being said, kind of getting that out of the way, now let's get into the actual team that currently play in a stadium that is not soccer specific. And we start off with number 8, the least likeliest team that is going to be building themselves a soccer specific stadium. And that, of course, is Atlanta United, who, of course, play at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And, I mean, this is pretty obvious why they are the least likeliest team that currently plays in the non-soccer specific stadium to build themselves a soccer specific stadium, is because they literally just built their move into the stadium alongside with the Falcons just a couple years ago. I mean, said this before, but I'm going to say it again. I think Mercedes-Benz Stadium is considered the best non-soccer specific stadium out of all the team that currently plays in that. I mean, it's just something about that stadium that looks very futuristic, and that I think down the years we're going to see kind of more like that kind of design. But this is kind of one of those stadium that it, even now in the modern time, it still look like it's way ahead of the time, and especially with the technology that is used in that stadium. I mean, that's just something that is to marvel, and it's something that this is definitely one of the stadiums that is on the top of my list in terms of stadiums I want to visit in MLS. Now, granted, I know Atlanta United fans have also said that the one of the big issue with Mercedes-Benz Stadium is that the sightline isn't actually the best, and you know, it makes sense because hence it is kind of built for NFL purpose, even though they said it's kind of like a multi-purpose stadium. And anytime when you see a MLS team playing an NFL stadium, you're not going to get as good of a sight line. But I think it could be forgiven with the way that, you know, regularly the stadium is packed about 40,000 fans. Sometimes it could be open up all the way to 70,000, and it creates some of the best atmosphere we've seen in the league. Like, every Atlanta United game feels like a party. And again, there's no way that you know, even I know Atlanta is a city that is infamous in terms of touring down their stadium and building a new one down the line. I don't think Mercedes-Benz Stadium is one. I think this stadium is going to be there for a long time, and again, Atlanta, there's just no point for them to leave a stadium that they literally just moved in a couple of years ago. But now moving to number 7, and that of course is the Seattle Sounders. And again, the Sounders, I think they're happy with CenturyLink Field. And in terms of all the non-soccer specific stadium, I talk about Mercedes-Benz Stadium as the best. But in general, if you want to get the experience, the atmosphere, and the big attendance, and also have a relatively good sightline, I've heard Lumen's Field has considered the best one, and hence that's why the Sounders have no plans in terms of moving somewhere else. I mean, ideally, I would hope that one day the Sounders would get their own stadium. I mean, it would be really cool of them playing in their own stadium and not sharing with the Seattle Seahawks. But I don't mind with the way that when you look at Lumen's Field, it kind of almost looked like a soccer specific stadium with the roof, and it's always considered one of the loudest, if not the loudest, stadium in the league because of that roof, and also it's a stadium that is packed with Sounders fans game in and game out. So again, there's no point, I think even with the stadium kind of started to age a little bit. I mean, people forget that the stadium is now approaching 20 years, but with the way that it looks like it's stand against the time, and that I think the Sounders are thinking about not moving away from their stadium, even though they've been there since they came into the league, and that they're happy to stay in that team. I mean, this is one of the few times besides Atlanta United where an MLS team actually work well of playing in a stadium that is not soccer specific stadium and sharing it with an NFL venue. I mean, there's always that kind of talks about how when an MLS team share a venue with an NFL team, it never works. But we see some teams that is able to work out, and I think the Sounders is a great example of that. And really, they're a great example before even Mercedes-Benz Stadium was built just a couple of years ago. But now at number 6, it is going to be their Cascadia rival up in the north. And that, of course, is the Vancouver Whitecaps. And people forget that the Whitecaps don't actually play in a soccer-specific stadium, and that BC Place actually is not one of them, as they are shared with the CFL team that is the BC Lions. But here's a fun fact for you guys. The Whitecaps were actually thinking about building themselves their own soccer-specific stadium, even when they were coming into the league. I mean, remember when they came into the league, they built themselves a temporary soccer field, kind of gone with the Inter Miami route, with them building a stadium that's only there for a year before moving in to a brand new stadium. Well, there's actually talks of the fact that they were actually going to be building themselves a waterfront soccer-specific stadium, but ultimately they decided to just move it into the newly renovated BC Place that was ready to open for the 2010 Winter Olympics. And to this day on, the Whitecaps doesn't seem like they have any kind of thought of moving away. I mean, I think what is also fascinating is that I read about the waterfront soccer specific stadium that the Whitecaps are thinking about, and all they're saying is that they're still thinking about doing it. I mean, they didn't say that project is completely dead. It's still kind of put on hold, so maybe one day that project might be put back into shape. I mean, I think hopefully the Whitecaps, I think BC Place does fit the Whitecaps very, very well. I mean, I heard the sightline there is also so not as bad as some people would think about, but it would be nice that the Whitecaps would be able to play outdoor and play in a waterfront area, and especially with Vancouver being such a beautiful city. I mean, I remember when they play at their temporary stadium that is Empire Field. I mean, that stadium was absolutely gorgeous with the mountain in the background. It's just kind of such a shame the fact that the Whitecaps have to play at BC Place. I mean, BC Place is a nice stadium. It's one of the more lovely retractable roof stadium that we've seen, but it really kind of blocks out the beautiful view of the Vancouver area. So yeah, hopefully one day that they'll think about maybe once again continue with building a soccer specific stadium in the waterfront. But as of now, it seems like the Whitecaps are in no move of moving away from BC Place. At number 5 is going to be the team that is coming into the league this season, and that of course is Charlotte FC. So again, I think this is a very interesting one with Charlotte, with the way that there's been talks that they are going to be maybe renovating Bank of America Stadium, and kind of also maybe make it a retractable roof stadium, or kind of a fixed roof stadium in the future. But as of now, they do play in one of the oldest stadium in MLS, and of course they're kind of choosing to go with the MLS 1.0 air kind of rule, where they decide to play it in a stadium to share with the NFL team, that is the Carolina Panthers. And again, it kind of makes sense with the way that Charlotte FC is kind of partially owned by the owners of the Carolina Panthers. But obviously, I know some people would feel like they probably could have just built themselves their own soccer specific stadium. I mean, don't get me wrong, Bank of America Stadium, from what I heard, the sight line is actually not as bad as people might think, and it does fit well to be a soccer stadium. But I know there are some people, including myself, that love to see every team eventually move into a soccer specific stadium in the future to do so. But as of now, it seems like Charlotte maybe have no plans in terms of moving in or building themselves a new soccer specific stadium. Although I have heard that they said that it is part of their long-term future, that maybe one day they might think about moving away from Bank of America Stadium and build themselves a new stadium in the future. Now, at number 4, and this team is pretty much been kind of the butts of jokes about non-soccer specific stadium, and been on the memes every single time on the Reddit page. And that, of course, is NYCFC and the infamous Yankee Stadium. I mean, again, cue all the jokes about NYCFC playing on a baseball stadium, and how not only the sightline is absolutely terrible, but also when you watch a game on TV, it is an absolute eyesore kind of moment. But I put them at number 4, and not really put them that high, is mainly because we've been having this discussion so many years about how NYCFC eventually is going to build themselves a new stadium, and there's just so many numerous rumors and talks that's happening. And it just feels like those kind of talks are just talks. It never really kind of advances. I mean, I actually did watch a video. I forgot who of course were made it, but they talk about how the only reason why NYCFC aren't able to kind of build themselves a new stadium is all the New York politics, and also kind of the Yankees are kind of preventing them to do so. But nevertheless, obviously building a stadium in New York, and especially in New York proper. We're not talking about how the Red Bulls decided to go to New Jersey and build themselves their stadium there. I mean, I'm pretty sure NYCFC is definitely not thinking about doing that. They want to build their stadium either in the Bronx or in New York proper, or New York City proper. But yeah, I mean, it has been a very, very challenging kind of process, a process that we thought it was going to maybe end when they came into the league. I think they kind of lied to Don Gabbard a little bit about the fact that they do have a future of moving into a new stadium, and they're kind of using Yankee Stadium as a temporary ground. And it seemed like now it doesn't seem like it's just a temporary ground. It seems like maybe it's going to be a permanent future for now. And now we also talk about how they've been kind of almost feel like a team that loves to move to different stadium. Like, this upcoming season, not only they're playing games at Yankee Stadium, but they're playing at Citi Field, and now they're even playing one game at Red Bull Arena, which NYCFC fans have always said that is a disgrace with the way that they're playing literally in their hated rival stadium, and it just feels an absolute embarrassment. And I don't disagree with them. I mean, I think that's kind of ridiculous, the fact that you have to play home games in your arch rival stadium, even though technically that's kind of for the best, and at least that's kind of the best viewing time to watch an NYCFC game on TV, because like I said, it is an absolute nightmare to watch them play at Yankee Stadium. So yeah, again, hopefully one day they'll figure it out, but it is New York, and getting things done, and especially building a stadium in New York, is 10 times as challenging as any other city in the country. So again, we'll see. Hopefully one day they will finally get themselves a new stadium. Now, moving on to number 3, and that of course is the Chicago Fire. Now, for the Fire, this is a very interesting thing that I found. Now, so the Fire, who currently play at Soldier Field, and of course they actually had themselves a soccer specific stadium a couple of years ago, and obviously people hate it because it was so far away from the city of Chicago, and it was kind of the suburb of Bridgeville, where it was almost impossible to get to it if you don't drive. The Fire kind of decided to make the decision of moving back to Soldier Field. And this is kind of, I think, the only time we have seen an MLS team decided to move from a soccer specific stadium back to the stadium that they kind of move out of it, because they want to join the trend of teams moving out of cavernous NFL stadium and build themselves their own soccer specific stadium. Now, what's also kind of interesting is that I've heard that the primary tenant of Soldier Field, that is the Chicago Bears, they're actually thinking about leaving Soldier Field, and that they're actually thinking about building a stadium somewhere else in the suburbs, and that the Chicago Fire could actually be the permanent tenant of Soldier Field if that, of course, would happen. And there's even talks of them maybe even downscaling Soldier Field once again, and making even more renovation to make it look like a soccer specific stadium. So, what's interesting about this, besides all the kind of things I talk about, is that they technically don't need to build themselves a soccer specific stadium. Like, they can literally just renovate the place and make it look like that. But either way, I've also heard with them talk about how their long-term future, and especially their new owner Joe Mansudo, talk about how their long-term future is that they're going to find a new stadium in Chicago, and that Soldier Field right now, it feels like the reason why they want to move back is because they want that nostalgia kind of moment, want to give some of their die-hardcore fan of them returning what is definitely considered the home of this team, because that's the first stadium that they played since their inception into the league in 1998. But it just gets to a point where Soldier Field, again, it's not a bad place to watch a game, and the sightline, of course, is also pretty good. But you can see that in some Fire fans I've saw this season, it just kind of looked like this was giving me MLS 1.0 kind of vibe, with the way that they were playing in front of empty seats, and they were also playing in a stadium that, as I said, since they're shared with the Chicago Bears, that means you're going to have these American football lines that kind of overline the soccer dimension, especially as we get into the NFL season. And while that does give a good nostalgia to the early 2000s of MLS games, it doesn't really give a good look of the fact that MLS gets to pass that time where teams are now in the innovation of moving away from these stadium and actually having their own soccer specific stadium. But hopefully one day the Fire will get themselves a new stadium, and basically go back to maybe decide to correct their mistake of them making their last soccer specific stadium and putting it in a suburb that basically nobody from Chicago can reach in without getting in a car or getting there for like an hour or 2 hours or so. But now at number 2, the team that is most likely going to be, because I mentioned Inter Miami is most likely going to be the team that's going to move out of their soccer specific stadium, even though technically their stadium is soccer specific. And then, of course, is the New England Revolution. And, again, I do believe the rumors that it is true. The Kraft family have mentioned many times that they're eventually going to build that new stadium in Boston, and that even their club legend Taylor Twellman have kind of give a lot of hint the fact that the Revs are going to move back to, or are going to move to Boston and have themselves their own stadium. And yeah, I think it's just kind of a matter of time. I know also the traction isn't as much as you would expect, but if you ask me, out of all these teams, that who is most likely the team that most likely is going to finally move out of Gillette Stadium, or not Gillette Stadium, but a non-soccer specific stadium, it's got to be the Revs. And this is despite the fact that Gillette Stadium is going to go through a major renovation in the future. I just think the time is right, and that I won't be surprised in a couple of years that they are going to finally develop a plan to build a new stadium in Boston, or at least in the Boston area, and the New England Revolution will finally get to play in a place where, if they were able to play in Boston, no doubt they attract more fans to go to Revs game. I know last season it did attract a lot of fans, but a lot of that has to do with the fact that most of, I will say that yes, it did attract a lot of fans, but most of the time when they have good attendance, we're doing weekend During midweek games, that's when you saw Revs game that was like only at 10,000, and you just wonder how in the world does the team that is literally leading the supporter shield standing and is the best team in the league draw so few crowd. Well, the reason is that it's almost impossible to get to Foxborough during the middle of the weekend. I know most Revs fan living in the Boston area or living in the New England area, they're not going to make that tedious trip to able to do so. So for them to basically build a stadium in Boston and attract more a new market there, I think it would really improve this team in terms of the fan interest, because I'm pretty sure a lot of people from Boston, we know Boston is a very good sports city, but I'm pretty sure a lot of them are not actually New England Revolution fan. Like, their first team is either going to be the Patriots, the Bruins, the Celtics, or especially like the Red Sox. But if you ask any Boston fans, they'll probably think that the Rams are kind of like an afterthought, and even some people don't know that their city have a soccer team. And again, a lot of that has to do with the way that they just don't play in a market where it can really appeal to a lot of people from the big city to make their drive down to, of course, watch them play throughout the 90 minutes. But yeah, there we have it. That is pretty much it in terms of my rankings of looking at all the teams that is currently playing in a non-soccer specific stadium and potentially moving out of it. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of it? Do you agree with this list? Do you think I maybe put some team a little bit too high or too low in terms of them moving out of their soccer or non-soccer specific stadium? But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.